They say every great idea starts as a spark, but the one Socrates lit in Athens didn't stay small. It spread like a wildfire that wouldn't obey fences, rules, or polite conversation. It burned illusions, warmed the curious, and made the comfortable squirm. And somehow a man with no title, no armor, and only a mouth full of questions became the most dangerous person in the city. You remember him from part 1, sandals, silence, that tiny half-smile. But now imagine the scale, a city built on speeches, reputations, the kind of certainty that lets people sleep at night, suddenly hearing the most ordinary question and realizing they can't answer it without lying to themselves. Socrates didn't lecture, he interrupted certainty. He'd pop up in the agora like a human splinter and ask the simple stuff: what is justice? What does it mean to be brave? And when the answer faltered, the whole conversation shifted. The young men who followed him weren't there for clever lines or glory, they followed because he taught them a craft more dangerous than war: how to cut through your own bullshit. Ever tried challenging someone who can't stand being wrong? That's what he did, to poets, to generals, to the men who thought they built wisdom into law, and the effect wasn't theatrical humiliation so much as a slow, unbearable truth. People looked smaller when they had to stand next to what they actually believed. He disarmed with questions, not swords. He peeled away pride, ego, and inherited answers until all that was left was a raw, trembling curiosity, and that's addictive. For a while Athens laughed, because laughter is the easiest defense. Light mockery covers the deeper fear of being exposed. But laughter changed into nerves. Boys came home quoting Socrates and asking their fathers things that made them flinch. The politicians, the men who had baked morality into the city's public face, began to notice how uneasy civic life had become. A generation raised on honor found their sons coming home asking whether honor without understanding was just theater. That's when the whispers started: he's poisoning the youth. He's making fools of our leaders. It's a strange irony. The man trying to wake people up was accused of confusing them. The man who wanted the truth was branded a corrupter. Ask yourself for a second, who gets afraid first when people begin to think for themselves? Not the poor. Not the powerless. It's those whose authority depends on being believed unquestioningly. The powerful see questions as knives aimed at their hands. So the city that had once cheered for debate began to look at Socrates like a contagion, and fear is a clever costume for legal language. But before the trial there were moments of quiet beauty, nights of conversation under oil lamps where friends argued until dawn, laughter that hid terror, pupils testing one another, the slow building of a mind that had been taught how to ask and therefore how to live. Plato watched and wrote, his notebooks filling with the kind of sentences that would become a later world's backbone, and even those who disagreed had to admit something. Their minds were sharper for having been prodded. Still, danger crept closer. Instead of reasoning with him, the city chose accusation. Instead of facing their own doubts, they tried to remove the one who exposed them. And there's a line I want you to feel, not a fact, but a feeling. Before the legal words arrive, truth has a way of making cowards look powerful. That's the ugly pivot. The men who could no longer answer their children's questions wrapped their fear in charges that sounded respectable on paper. Corrupting the youth. Impiety. Two words that, on their own, could be argued about for hours. In the mouths of the frightened, they become hammers. Imagine the day the summons came, a warm Athenian morning, vendors hawking fruit, boys skipping stones, and someone reading out accusations that would change history. Imagine the friends who rushed to him, the students who pleaded, the ones who begged him to disappear for a while and let the noise pass. But Socrates, with that same steady calm, refused to run. He told them that a good life isn't measured by safety but by integrity, and if he had to die for the things he taught, he'd rather the city remember why he asked those questions. That line, "No one can harm a good man," sounds almost naive until you see how it flips fear into freedom. It's not bravado, it's clarity. A man who values his soul over his skin cannot be bullied into silence. Still, the city moved forward with its plan. The courtroom that was supposed to stand for justice became a stage for fear to look respectable. And now we reach the moment every story of courage must face, when the rules of the game are turned into a weapon against the truth-teller. The trial wasn't just an event, it was a test of the city's moral spine. Would Athens choose the discomfort of questioning, or would it choose the easy comfort of condemning the questioner? In part 3 we step into that courtroom where the fate of a single man becomes a question that every human heart must answer, because when truth meets fear, it's not only laws that are judged, it's the courage inside each of us.